Welcome back to Black Poets Then and Now. My name is Kara Roseborough, and today we are talking about poet, writer, educator, activist, and commemorator Nikki Giovanni. Nikki Giovanni was born Yolande Cornelia Giovanni Jr. in 1943 in Knoxville, Tennessee. Shortly after, she and her family moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, where her parents worked at Glenview School. In 1948, her family moved to Wyoming. While there, her sister gave her the nickname of Nikki. While growing up, Giovanni was often sick with colds and allergies and had to stay home from school. During this time, she enjoyed a love of reading and dug into her mother's library, reading Paul Laurence Dunbar, Langston Hughes, Richard Wright, and much more. In 1958, Giovanni moved back to Knoxville, Tennessee, where she lived with her grandparents and attended Austin High School. 2 years later, she entered the early entrance program for Fisk University, her grandfather's alma mater. This was a program specifically designed for academically gifted children and allowed them to take college courses without finishing high school. Upon entering the program, Giovanni began to clash with the dean, and she was actually expelled for leaving campus without permission for Thanksgiving break. She moved back home, worked at a Walgreens, and helped take care of her nephew. When the new dean took over, she reached out to Giovanni and encouraged her to re-enroll for the fall at Fisk University. Upon her return, Giovanni edited Elan, a student's literary journal. She also helped to reinstate the campus chapter of SNCC, or the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee, and she published an essay on gender studies in Negro Digest. Giovanni graduated with honors in 1967 with a Bachelor's of Arts in History. Shortly after she graduated, Giovanni's grandmother passed away. Giovanni turned to writing as a way to cope, and the poems that she wrote during that time were included in her very first collection, Black Feeling, Black Talk, published the following year in 1968. In addition to publishing her work, she also attended the University of Pennsylvania for a semester in 1968 before moving to New York City to briefly attend Columbia University. The following year in 1969, Giovanni accepted a teaching position at Livingston College of Rutgers University. From 1973 to 1987, in addition to her collections of poetry, Giovanni published multiple poetry anthologies, children's books, and spoken word albums. Giovanni was an active member and influential figure of the Black Arts Movement and the Civil Rights Movement. In 1970, she made regular appearances on the talk show, variety show, and entertainment show Soul, which was dedicated to promoting Black culture, art, and political expressions. She also helped to design and produce episodes of the show. Other noteworthy guests were Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight, Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, and many others. Giovanni is often regarded as one of the best African American poets to emerge out of the 1960s. Her work is known for calling to action for Black unity, solidarity, and overall awareness. She's also known, however, for having a global sense of solidarity with those oppressed around the world. Her early work is considered more militant than her later work, with her first three collections, Black Feeling, Black Talk, Black Judgment, and Recreation, addressing the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Power movement. She went on to write over 24 books, including collections of poetry, children's books, and collections of essays. She's known for wanting her work to be accessible to both adults and children. Giovanni was able to reach wider audiences with public readings and spoken word albums. Her first public reading was at the New York jazz spot, Birdland. In the late 1960s and early 70s, Giovanni's work shifted to talk more about Black womanhood and manhood. In the 70s and 80s, she gained more popularity and international acclaim. Her writing was influenced by her travels to Europe and Africa, while continuing to address her changing concerns and worldviews. One of Giovanni's most noted works of nonfiction is Racism 101, published in 1994, which addresses the Civil Rights Movement and the aftermath. Stylistically speaking, Giovanni is known for having a unique and personal writing style. She's known for writing free verse poems while playing with structure, and writing socially conscious poems that use extended metaphors and repetition, which we talked about on Tuesday in our Elements of Poetry class. When speaking with contemporary authors, Giovanni said this about writing. Writing is what I do to justify the air I breathe. I have been considered a writer who writes from rage, and it confuses me. What else do writers write from? A poem has to say something. It has to make some sort of sense, be lyrical to the point, and still be able to be read by whatever reader is kind enough to pick up the book. During the 1970s, Giovanni co-founded Nikki, a publishing company dedicated to giving opportunities to other African American female writers. Since 1987, Giovanni has taught writing and literature at Virginia Tech, where she holds the title of University Distinguished Professor. In the early 1990s, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. She underwent numerous surgeries and wrote about her battle with cancer in her 1999 poetry collection, Blues, For All the Changes, New Poems. One of Giovanni's students was the perpetrator of the mass shootings of Virginia Tech in 2007. The president of the university asked Giovanni to give the convocation speech at the memorial service for the victims of the shooting. Giovanni had less than 24 hours to write what ended up being a moving speech ending in a chant poem. Giovanni has received numerous awards, honors, and accolades throughout her extensive career, including the NAACP Image Award, the Langston Hughes Medal, the Presidential Medal of Honor from Dillard University, a Grammy nomination for the spoken word album Nikki Giovanni Poetry Collection, 20 honorary doctorates, and the keys to numerous cities, including Dallas, Miami, New York City, and Los Angeles. Giovanni received a lifetime membership and scroll from the National Council of Negro Women, and she was the first person to receive the Rosa L. Parks Women of Courage Award. Her legacy is one of uplifting and uniting people around the world. In her own words, "My dream was not to publish or to even be a writer. My dream was to discover something no one else had thought of. I guess that's why I'm a poet. We put things together in ways no one else does." Thank you, Nikki Giovanni, for your incredible contributions to the world as a poet, a writer, and an activist. And thank you to you, our viewers, for watching yet another episode of Black Poets Then and Now. I want to remind you about our poetry challenge for this week, which is to write a poem 10 lines or less using the literary device of repetition, a device that Ms. Giovanni has used quite often in her own work. You can submit your work to fjtheater@cityofevanston.org by this Sunday at noon. Please remember that by submitting your work, you give Fleetwood-Jourdain Theater the right to review and share your submission via video and on our social media platforms for the Stay Creative series. We would love to share your work. So go ahead, enjoy the rest of your day, and get to writing. I look forward to reading what you've written. As always, stay safe and stay creative. Bye!